Hi there. So the purpose of all of this and this series of videos is to help everybody get started in this fantastic stamping world. So are you wondering where to start this stamping journey? And have you bought a bunch of stuff that looks like you needed it? We all have, and because we want to make sure that we make the card right. So that's why we've gone out and bought all that stuff. Welcome to Stampin' with Diane. I'm Diane Evans, and I'm an independent Canadian Stampin' Up Demonstrator. You're so excited. Now what? First, you're going to need some basic tools. As you get into it, you can add more, but I'm just going to show you the basic tools. Some of you already have a lot of these tools, and some of you might go, oh, I never really knew about that tool. But stamping and card making is really all about stamps, ink, and paper. But as far as the basic tools go, I'm going to go through that. This catalog is a great source just to start off with. It gives you different samples and everything else. I also have sample recipes that I can give anybody that requests it. I might even just post it on the files group here in this, this particular group. But this is one of the best brochures that you can, and this is a beginner brochure. So basically, this goes about and it gives you different hints and that sort of stuff, but this brochure does have different stamp sets that are not in the regular catalog. Okay, so I'm just going to move that off to the side for a second. So one of the best things that you can get, and one of the first things that you should get, is a trimmer. Now with the trimmers, you know, any trimmer is a good trimmer, but you want one that cuts and scores. Now this is the Stampin' Up trimmer. It does have the cutting blade and it has the scoring blade. It also has the refills that go along with it. One of the most important things, or the thing I notice about this particular trimmer, is this cutting blade is longer than it's ever been before. Our other one, we had issues with the other trimmer, but this one here has a longer blade on it and it stays sharper longer, so I really like that. And then with this scoring blade, this is a bit different of a mechanism, and it's like a washer in there, and it's a roller in there, and that you need for your scoring. Now another thing that's really good about this particular trimmer is that it is in these lines that go all the way down, and everything else are in 1/4 inch marks, and that's really good for when you want to do layering on your card. This trimmer is also good in centimeters and inches, and it does expand out to 18 inches on for different scrapbooking and that sort of stuff. Okay, now what else have I got here? All the other things that this one can do, I can go into, and I'll go into that as we go along in this different series. But like I say, this is a really important tool. Probably this is a tool that you're going to use almost every day when you make cards, a trimmer. Okay, so I'll just move that off to one side. Now, the second most important thing for you to have is a really good pair of scissors. These are Stampin' Up paper snips. They can get in, they've got sharp points, and they're narrow. Not every scissor is the same. There's some scissors that you can get out there that have such a wide blade in here. Geez, I have to clean that off. There's some that have such a wide blade in there that you can't get into those intricate parts. And once you go along a little bit more, it would be wise to also get a second pair of scissors and use it and dedicate it especially just for ribbon cutting. Now, a bone folder. I can't emphasize enough how important this thing is. This not only works as scoring on your cards, I mean like really scoring your fold and everything else, but it's got so many other uses. So in this whole series and this special dedicated Facebook group that I have, I'm going to be going through an awful lot of that stuff, and we're going to be using that stuff today. Then the Take Your Pick tool. I think this is one of the best things that Stampin' Up ever came out with, is this Take Your Pick tool. It has I lose this all the time, so I'm just going to put that back. It has a really good paper piercer. Now, a paper piercer can be used to pierce paper, like you would just take like a paper piercing mat, and I don't want to use this one because it's dedicated just to plain. Here, this one is for paper piercing. But see, where you would take a piece of cardstock and say you wanted to do like this and wanted to do that in the corners. Of course, you would do that better than what I just did. But that's what this paper piercer works for. But I also use this paper piercer for when I go to pick up my gems. I go under here to pick up my gems. I use it for taking the backing off of double-sided tape, all that sort of stuff. This is my tool that I go to also when I make cards with different adhesives. Problem is, 9 times out of 10, I can't find it immediately, so that's why I have 2 of them on my desk. Now, it also unscrews here, and you have, this is like a spatula, and this can be good for lifting off, like, you know, when you've got a piece of card, like a card put together, and say you want to kind of lift it, you can kind of lift it and go along there, and that kind of helps a little bit there. I don't use this as much as I do my paper piercing side. So let's go and put that lid back on there so I don't poke myself. Then on this side, and you don't want to screw, sorry, this cap just goes on and off. When you screw this, this is when this putty comes out. Now, I don't know if I've got anything that I can show you. Okay, but I will show it. If you have things like rhinestones that you want to just pick up and put it onto your card, you can just take this like this and it lifts the paper up. If you want little tiny embellishments, that's what that's for. On your Take Your Pick tool, you also get a refill of that, and the refills can be bought. But very important that you just snap it on, that you don't twist it, because you're going to get rid of all this ooze there. Now on this part here, this part can come out, and then you have these stylus parts here, and they just go in there. This is a small stylus, and this is for your large stylus. If you have a scoring board, this is great when you use this for the scoring board, but you can also use this in your paper trimmer as well to do scoring, especially you use the finer, this finer one here. You use this one for a heavier type cardstock or a heavier like chipboard or something like this. And this is done with a very, very fine pointer there. Okay, so I'm just going to put those on. Now, another thing that it does have, I'm actually going to take that off because I know I'm going to need the paper piercer part. Now, the other thing is it does have an attachment that has a brush. So this part here can come off, and now you can use this Take Your Pick tool as a brush. Now, at this point right now, if you don't have any die cuts or anything else, you're not going to need this attachment. But once you get into cutting and embossing, this is going to be one of your favorite tools. I have a separate Take Your Pick tool, and I just have this end on there, and I leave the stylus ends on there as well. And then what comes along with that brush is a couple of these pads to help get those little intricate parts out of your dies. Okay, so let's just put that back in there. You notice I'm not screwing this top part there. And then that's our Take Your Pick tool. All right, so I'm just going to put that away. Then we have adhesives. And I have a hard time saying this word, but adhesives. We're going to go into more detail as we go along. But I am going to be talking about the Stampin' Seal, which is a brand new seal that Stampin' Up has come out with. And I must say it's an improvement, but it takes time to get used to it. It's just so much easier to hold. You know you're not going to use it the wrong way because it's just not comfortable using it that way. But there's so many different types of adhesive. And just think of it this way. A carpenter has many different nails for different things. Just like we would need all these different adhesives for different types of things when we're doing our paper crafting. Another thing that's really a real handy thing when you're first starting out are these note cards. They come in Whisper White and they come in Very Vanilla. These come in packs of 20. They have the envelopes that go with it. They already have their piece of paper, and it's also scored. Remember, if you've ever taken any sort of classes with me, you always fold into the mountain. So when you score down like that, you're going to fold into that part there. And this part, you can feel it. It's the bumped up area. And the reason being for that is because when you've scored this way, you've broken the fibers down. So when you fold in, it's going to go like that. So see what I mean by needing that bone folder? So let's bring that bone folder in, and we're going to score this because we're going to make a card in a bit. So see how nicely that scores that down. Okay, so note cards we've covered. Now, also something that's really, really important is, and I'm going to grab that thing back again. Oh, here we go. This beginner brochure, the one thing that's really important when you first start with stamping is get yourself a stamp set, one that you can play with quite a bit, but ones that have an image on it and also some sentiments on it. And you'll find that you will get further along with different sort of things. Other things that are available are stamping kits. And I think there's a stamp kit in here as well. But they are in the beginning of the book. And most of those come with a stamp set. Some of them come with ink pads. Some come with blocks. It just depends what kind of a kit that you get. So that's really a good way to start as well. Paper. Probably one of the biggest things that I've talked about, and I will post that video that I've done on paper. There's so many different types of paper. The one beauty of Stampin' Up is that it does have 50 colors of paper. It has ink pads that go with it. It has ribbon. It has all the embellishments. They all match. But the one thing also about Stampin' Up, they're white and they're very vanilla paper. It's superior to a lot of paper out there. And you'll actually, when you feel Whisper White, you'll be able to feel the difference between Whisper White, the Stampin' Up, and the non-Stamping Up. Especially if you start getting into coloring with blends. Very important that you have a good paper to color with it. So, but our Whisper White and our Very Vanilla come in two different weights. One is a heavier, thick weight, which is for card bases, and the other one's for layering and everything else. And trust me, layering is coming. It's coming. Now, the ink pads. There is a really neat thing in this beginner brochure that you can get a bunch of stamping spots. Now, these stamping spots are like this. This one happened to come from a paper pumpkin pack, and you get a Stampin' Spot every month when you get your paper pumpkin. But this gives a wide assortment of different colors. And there's also at the beginning of this, they've got another one of two of the new colors. Personally, I like the big stamp pads, and these are the stamp pads. This is a new one. They are a little tough to open up at the very beginning. You open it up, and I rub it back and forth. But this gives you a bigger surface to stamp with. And then we have our stamps. We have two types of stamps. Well, two types of stamps. We have, this is a photopolymer, not to be mixed up with acrylic stamps. These are a lot thicker, and they do stamp really nice. If you have stamps that are have a bit of detail on them, these ones are really quite good with them, but you do need to stamp with a paper piercing mat underneath when you're using these stamps. Then you also have these stamps, and these are called cling mount stamps. And I'll explain why they're called cling mount, but they are a rubber stamp. And I'll take one of these off. They're a red rubber stamp, and they also have this foam, which means that when they go onto a stamping block, and you will need stamping blocks, when they go onto that, they stick. But there's another way we can use, and you'll notice I don't do this, but I will go into how to do it. On here, they have all the same sentiments as what they have here. So let me just go in, and I'm going to do the happy birthday one for you. So these are the tags that go on to the blocks. So the way that you put them on is I take 1/2 off, and because the camera's there, I'm hoping I'm going to get that lined up. I'm going to press that down there. Then I'm just going to take this other part off here. And that's how I get mine lined up. And here we're going to bring in that take your pick tool. And I'm going to need that for getting this part off right here. And just down like that. Now, the beauty of this, once this is taken off like this is so sticky that it stays onto a stamp pad like that. It also shows you kind of where that stamp is, right? I don't do this, and I'll tell you why I don't do this. For one, when I have a lot of different classes and that sort of stuff, I leave my stamps on my block or my Stamparatus. And by doing that, if I don't take these off immediately, because you have to get underneath it and peel it off. If you don't take it off immediately, it tends to stick to the block a little bit harder. Now, another thing that I always suggest, if you have these types of stamps, is take this part here. Don't throw this part away. Don't leave your stamps like this. Don't throw this part away. And I'll tell you, this is just well, you could, but I leave it like this. I attach it like this, and then it stays in here. I know whether or not if I'm missing a stamp or not. So that kind of helps me in that aspect there. But you notice I line mine up just like this. And I also keep them on my Stamparatus. On my Stamparatus, if I leave them on there, and like I say, I've got ones from stamp sets that are like by the dock. And the reason I do is because I still have an ongoing online class going with that. And I need to leave them in a certain spot because I've positioned them in this spot. So I don't use these. I just put them down here. Also on the back, on the inside, it does show you how to do that as well. Okay, and within your stamps, like rubber stamps, and within your photopolymer stamps, there's other stamps. There's reversible stamps. There's distinctive stamps, but those are things that we can go into. Actually, we're going to play with the distinctive stamp very, very shortly here. So now, that was a lot of information, wasn't it? It was a lot of information. So we're just going to do a really, really quick card today. So I'm grabbing my note card. I folded it into the mountain. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to actually learn a technique today as well. This is called a masking technique. So all I've done is I've taken a small Post-it note. It can be any size. If you use a proper color, a proper shape, a proper proper size cardstock, you might want to use a bigger one. You can cut down your Post-it notes and everything. So what you can also do is, if you have grid paper, you can line up your grid paper and you can get that positioned in the center. I tend to not do that. I can kind of eyeball it. I hope I can. Now that I'm on camera, I may not. So I'm just actually going to put this here. And then I'm going to grab one of the new stamps that are in the annual catalog. Probably one of my favorite is Forever Fern. And I'm going to grab some stamps out of there. Now, with the Designer Series paper, on the back of a Designer Series paper pack, it shows you all the different color packs that are available with them. And then it also shows you corresponding colors. So I'm going to actually do this card. I'm going to do it in Pretty Peacock, Pear Pizzazz, and Just Jade. So this is called masking. And these are also called distinctive stamps. Okay, so I am going to take Pretty Peacock. These just lift up and slide. And I'm going to take that. Now, the one thing also with stamping or making cards, you're always best to go in multiples of 3. So I'm going to make sure those stems are there off to that side. Put this up here. And then I'm just going to put one here. Now, when I show you this, you'll see what I mean by a distinctive stamp. It really, really looks, they're just so pretty. It's not flat, I guess is what I have to say about that. So now I'm going to go in with some Pear Pizzazz. I'll close this up because I'm very good at getting my fingers into them. And I'm just going to use this little leaf thing. I'm going to go 1, 2, and I think I'll go down here. Now, normally you don't go in even numbers, but I've got 6 on there, and I'm going to come in and do this with 7. So there's an uneven number in there. And then I'm going to use, first time using this Just Jade. Now, the other thing, when you do get ink pads on the back, I just want to show this to you. On the back, it has all these different colors on there. So I put my Just Jade on there. And then, because I leave mine open a lot on the desk, this also shows me what color I'm using when it's lying flat on the desk like that. Okay. So I'm just going to go in with this last one. See how you can see? It doesn't stamp all the way, but that's a distinctive stamp. And then I'm just going to put this, don't want that stem coming off of that Post-it note. So I'm just going to put it like that. And that's masking. And like I say, this is a very, very simple card. And simple sometimes is the best as far as I'm concerned. And there is a sentiment in here. I'm going to use this one because it kind of fills it up a little bit. Now, the only problem with me putting my stamps like this is I don't know which is right side up. So I just stamp off and let myself know that. So I'm just going to put this in here. It's a little crooked. But I'm going to fix that up because I've got these, which are these little dots here. And I'm just going to put them right about there. And you don't really notice too much. Now we could dress this up a little more. We could put ribbon on there. We could put some pearls. We can color our pearls. We can get different dyes and that sort of stuff. But here's our envelope. So why not, let's put this also a stamp on the envelope. And just like that. And then we've got a very, very simple card. And it says, to a friend that makes me smile. During these times on my other Facebook group, I always say, make a card, send a card. I feel very strongly about that. If you can have all these cards, don't hold on to them. Keep them. I mean, give them away, right? So I hope that's the first of the many videos that I plan on doing. I plan on going live at least once. I might just pop on. Now, these live videos, you can always watch them later. You don't have to be on here live. But I hope that just shows you how simple stamping really can be. And trust me, as we go along, we're going to learn more and more and more. We didn't even have to use adhesive on this particular card because we have no layering. But if we wanted to do this a little bit different, we could have just even put a layer on there, and then we would have had to use our Stampin' Seal. So thanks for stopping by. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. This is going to be a separate series, Back to Basics series. And I hope to see you around soon. Bye for now.